and I started getting offers that were very hard to refuse, just because, I also didn't know the impact, because no one was talking about it. It was all new.
It's all new,
And
right?
yeah, because I was
Pe-
there like around the time that it was just taking off, that it was just
right.
starting to get like,
We also didn't
very
know how
popular.
fast, how long, how far you're gonna go. Right.
No, no. So I did start working for fast fashion brands, and so
Mm,
that was just the beginning of working for numerous,
right.
numerous amounts of fast fashion brands.
Mm-hmm.
Went from one company to another, and each one was paying me more and more and more. But
Mm,
they don't call it fast fashion for a reason. It's like fast fashion is fast. So
right.
I'd have to produce so many designs. It was so incredibly stressful because, they were paying me well, but
Mm-hmm.
when you divided the hours, you divided the time,
Right.
I wasn't really getting paid that much because I was working 6 to 7 days a week, and I was working no less than 10 hours a day. 12, I would say, was about the norm. 12 to 14 hours a day.
Wow.
So that was a lot of hours and time, days. I hardly had any days off. And I just remember my 20s. Actually, I don't remember my 20s because how much I worked, and so by the time I was in my early 30s, I was
Mm-hmm.
so burnt out. I was incredibly burnt out. I started hearing so much stuff. I kept fighting with the owners. I kept arguing with them because they were being so wasteful with the materials. They wouldn't reuse anything, even if it was like a matter of a half ounce
Is that
materials.
is that because you know something about sustainability, or that's it's just something about yourself that you don't
It's
want
something
thing to
about
be waste?
me. Yeah,
Mm,
because I mean, my gut would say this is just not right. This isn't
mm,
where my values are, and especially
I see.
what really did it for me was when I started hearing that they were using child labor, and I started questioning the owners, and they wouldn't give me any straight answers. They wouldn't say like, "Oh no, no, we're not using child labor." I'm like, "Can you, like, what is going on?" And I go, I can't work for you if you're using child labor." And they're like, "Oh no, we wouldn't do that," but yet they couldn't show me proof of that they weren't using
Mm,
child labor in other countries. So I started investigating a little bit more on my own, and then just talking to other people that were also working for these companies. We started putting things together, and it kind
getting
of
all the
investigative
evidence.
work.
Yeah.
Yes, and so I, at that point, I was like, you know what, I
Uh-huh.
can't, I can't do this. And then
Right.
at that time as well, I found myself pregnant with my first child, and I was like, what kind of a world am I, part of here to for my child, because
Mm,
you could just see how it was accelerating.
right.
Fast fashion just was like moving faster and faster. you know you have all these seasons that they were producing like 52 seasons of clothing. Who does that? Every week there was a new,
Right.
layout
It still is.
yes. Well, no, it's
Yeah.
gotten worse. It's way worse. But I just could see how bad it was becoming, and at that point I was like, you know what, I'm having this baby, and
Mm,
I'm out. I just decided at that point that I'm checking out, because it was not just physically, I was being exploited, and I was seeing all the exploitation with the workers,
right.
but also it just wasn't what I signed up for in fashion, and I was so disillusioned by it, and I needed that break. So I'm really happy
Can you
that
tell
I
me
had that
what year we're
opportunity.
talking about?
Oh, this was in the early 2000s. Yeah, yeah. So
So you could see what started happening at that time, over 25 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was just really just unfortunate that
Mm-hmm.
the manipulation of marketing
Mm-hmm.
for these fast fashion companies, I
Right.
was privy to some of those where they were talking about how they didn't want the consumer to think about, you know,
Mm-hmm.
anything but like just wearing the next trend, the next fashion piece. And they really didn't talk about the consumer as a human being. They talked about it like they were just a symbol of money. That's what
Right.
they were.
I
So and that's how they see them now.
exactly. No, I remember I had a webisode with one of the advocates. She's from Germany. She told me how brands are pushing to buy us more because it's all the marketing thing. It's there is fast fashion and there's the marketing teams who are actually pushing towards, and the psychology of buying and all that stuff. So it's like a
Oh,
whole
it's very psychological, and
yeah,
it's very manipulative.
Right.
It's a lot of brainwashing, and that's why I share a lot of this, and that's why I say, yeah, I'm an OG because I used to work in fast fashion. That's what I used to do, and I don't regret it because I truly believe that if I hadn't worked in fast fashion, I wouldn't be so passionate about making change happen now.
Exactly.
Because I know exactly, I know their dirty secrets, and I know exactly how they target people, how they target the consumer, and we could, we could definitely flip it. And I do see how it's changing. I see how, the youth are wanting to wear more thrifted vintage items. They're paying attention to those brands that are being very destructive to our planet. Not just our planet, but people. It's very unethical. The practices that they have are extremely unethical.
So Clementina, how many years, because you just mentioned that we have enough clothes for the next six and seven generations, or close by, or maybe even more, how many years or decades it just took to produce that much amount of the clothes?
Oh, well, I mean, fast fashion has been around for the last probably 30 years. And I would say it's probably at its peak right now because it definitely keeps going on a trajectory. It keeps going up, right? And I would say, we had, people that debate me sometimes. They're like, it's easy for you to say, about upcycling or, finding ways to repair and mend your clothing and all that because you're a designer, you have those skills. But it's so expensive to buy sustainable fashion. That's sometimes I get that, when I'm talking because I'm a public speaker as well.
Of course.
And
those are
and
valid
sometimes
points, I would say.
yes, they are valid points. And so what I tell people is like, look, we were not, this is not something that we were used to. Fashion has never been this way. Fashion used to be about buying pieces that were quality. They were, they were loved. They weren't disposable. And what if I tell you that it's actually cheaper? It's cheaper than you can actually be sustainable, buy sustainable clothing, buy slow fashion, and it's for free. And they're like, no, there's no way you can't get anything for free that's sustainable. And I said, yeah, no, you can. You there's tons of swapping events at every city.
Oh, yeah.
Every city you
Right.
could attend a swapping event. You could have swapping events with your
Makes
friends.
sense.
I teach through the school district here where I live, and I teach classes, and I teach also adult ed. And I also work for sometimes I get hired at universities, and they'll have me come in and they'll have me do workshops and talk to their students and I show them how they can save money and how they could wear really, really great fashion for zero money.
Right.
So that debate is really, there's no debate. You can actually afford sustainable clothing. And you could actually save tons of money by it.
Exactly. I mean, I'm gonna mention it again that I had a guest on this webisode. She actually started a company where you can just swap your clothes in your city. You don't have to go outside or far away. You just put your zip code, your city, and you can find the people who are actually just giving away your size of clothing, and you could just go and swap it out, or you can just get it from them.
No, true.
Right? There are so many innovations now.
Yeah, so there's really, I mean, I'm not here to shame anybody. There's no excuse to not try to be more sustainable with your fashion.
Right.